So, I wanted to make a reply video to Fire Department Chronicles, the video that they just released of what happened to these people. All right. Now, he ended up mentioning one uh, called Taters McGee. I'm going to. Don't know exactly how to respond to that one too much, but let's go ahead and give a rundown, okay? So, obviously, as a paramedic, you've had to go ahead and learn a lot about the human body. You've had to go ahead and learn a lot about health, anatomy, you know, and you said that they still don't know what's going on. See, when you have multiple issues going on at one time, it actually could be difficult to go ahead and give a proper prognosis. All right. So let's go ahead and break down the numerous variables. All right. Which, by the way, have had to go ahead and keep track step by step of everything. All right. See, one thing I don't know if you've noticed, but deviated septum because of the factor I ended up being unfortunate enough to go ahead and get a steel-toed facial reconstructive surgery. That means steel-toed boot to the face. So that ended up going ahead and, cutting off a lot of the oxygen that goes to the body. Dealt with that for a long while. Still dealing with that, especially considering that before that, CPAP dependent, sleep apnea. But there was also a circumstance of getting starved. And when I got starved, that ended up going ahead and getting damage to the, production of glucose in the pancreas. So ultimately, that ended up leading to hypoglycemia. Now, people, or hyperglycemia. People tend to mix up the two. As you already know, hypoglycemia, body doesn't produce enough glucose, not able to go ahead and break down sugars in any form, whether it be sugars from, constantly eating sweets or energy drinks, sugary drinks, or, even for example, the way that the body ends up going ahead and turning carbohydrates like, your breads, your pastas, your taters, and turns that into sugar, for your body to be able to turn into energy. Well, those weren't the extent of the issues, all right? Ultimately, the hypoglycemia ended up going ahead and causing numerous circumstances throughout the years of traumatic brain injury because of blunt force trauma to the, cranial area, between the crown, amygdala, hippocampus, frontal lobe, including a dent, literal dent in the forehead right there. But, also ended up going ahead and causing a pressure from permanent case whiplash that ends up causing a pressure to build at the disc of the vertebrae that end up connecting right at the skull. That ultimately those pop, end up causing a swelling of the actual brain at the cerebellum. So that right there has ended up going ahead and causing inability for proper motor skill response, which ends up leading to, like for example, random muscle cramps throughout the entirety of the body. Now, there was also the factor of being born with flat feet. So, being born with flat feet, we're talking to the point of being in leg braces. You could go ahead and skip the Forrest Gump jokes. I've heard them all. All right. Ended up going ahead and having to have surgery at one point because of the factor that the nerves right under the actual, bones of the foot were going ahead and getting grinded like that and rolled into just a section of, nerve fibers or muscular fibers right where the arch is supposed to be. There was also the factor of thrombosis within the third ventricle, as well, that ended up leading entirely down through the bottom left leg, which ended up causing arterial clogging. Almost ended up dealing with a widowmaker situation, as well as elevated blood pressure on a constant basis. Actually, last hospitalization, bottom number was perpetually anywhere between 95 and 102, which is cardiac arrest levels, when taking blood pressure. So, yeah, was stressed out to the point of on the verge of, heart attack. Keep in mind, 34 years old. But ended up going ahead and having to have the arterial walls inflated, so that way that, as well as, the actual venular pathways, specific ones cut off because of arterial blockages, that ended up allowing the rerouting of blood flow to go ahead and try to buy some time before potential amputation. All right. So you go ahead and mix all of those situations, right? You got low oxidization of the blood, the blood throughout the system because of, sleep apnea as well as deviated septum. You've got nerve damage because of the factor of, cranial damage because of traumatic brain injury, as well as blunt force impact and contusions to the actual skull, as well as damage to the spinal column, at the couple of vertebrae that connect directly to the skull. Which oxidization ends up going ahead and causing the constant painful muscle spasms, Charlie horses. Not to mention that, but the arterial damage that ended up going ahead and needing the arterial walls to be inflated. Also, the damage to the pancreas that ended up going ahead and causing the overproduction of glucose because of the factor of forced starvation for an elongated period of time. Month and a half it took, which that ended up leading to the, cranial damage. I smell chlorine. That's a side effect that I never get used to. But overall, it ends up also causing a overproduction of mucousy white discharge. And the worst part is, it's not even snot, but that's a side effect of the deviated septum. And you go ahead and combine all those issues together, and you have just one entire body breaking down so much earlier than it's supposed to. We're talking early 30s dealing with health issues that ultimately, because of the timeline and younger point of dealing with them, ultimately is going to cause excessive health issues in, elderly and geriatric years. But, yeah, I've been studying, if you couldn't tell, like a lot, ultimately I was trying to make sure too, that, wanted to go ahead and be a disability advocate and a caretaker, how to go ahead and learn all the, law variables when it comes to, Hippocratic Oath, Americans with Disabilities Act, all of that. So I'm just trying to figure out how to be able to utilize that while at the same time trying to explain, yeah, I ended up learning a lot because apparently the brain has a lot of information retention capability and absorbing of new information when it's going ahead and trying to go ahead and heal neurological damage. Which the neurological damage is so bad that I literally have dead nerves and that look like little random black spots all throughout my body. Oh, also because of a exposed nerve within the actual jaw, because of a temporary crown that ended up going ahead and exposing a root canal that didn't end up getting fixed for years, which made every breath excruciating in pain. That ended up going ahead and causing basically a infection, that was completely and utterly, biological as far as germ, related, that ends up going ahead and causing me to get these lesions that are these little pus pockets that show up. I've actually getting over having one on my right side, on the side of my arm right now. They show up between both of my thighs. One directly over the area right above my genitals. Yeah. They show up under the waistline. So, yeah, that ended up, the damage that ended up getting done to that actually ended up apparently causing a spike in triglyceride levels, which ends up showing long-term thyroid damage. So, yeah, I've had to go ahead and learn about that individually, one by one, all along the way. Well, at the same time, when going ahead and having to break that all down to doctors, they start looking at me like I've got 5 heads. Because literally the circumstance at this point is, how the fuck am I not dead? And my answer is, I don't know. It's not for a lack of not only me trying, but also other people trying on my behalf.